Hi, I'm Kate, and I'm going to be talking to you about disability. Disability is a topic that touches almost everyone's lives. It is difficult to find one person who neither has a friend or loved one with a disability, nor is or has been disabled themselves. However, talking about disability makes most people very uncomfortable. People see disability as a taboo. It is unfamiliar and therefore makes them uneasy. In reality, ability is temporary, and people seldom go through life without having any kind of disability. My goal of this interview series is to make the unfamiliar aspects of disability familiar for all people of all cultures and backgrounds. The past few weeks' ratings have made me question a lot of things, in particular, how different cultures and people define disability. In the book, Disability in Local and Global Worlds, there are a few chapters and stories that stood out to me the most. Chapter 3 is titled Infertility in Egypt and India. This chapter discusses infertility of both men and women and the initiatives that have been put in place to eradicate this. However, a lot of times there's a large taboo about people who are infertile. As in many cultures, women's primary role is childbearing, so if she can't do that, what else can she do? I wanted to explore how something like infertility is handled in the United States and in present-day times with all of the technologies that are rapidly advancing. Chapter 6 tells the story of Domba, a man of a small Indian village who receives a kidney transplant and begins questioning his identity and his spirit, as he believes part of the donor's soul is with him. This chapter really confused me, as I thought, how on earth could this man think that is possible? But I wanted to explore how disability was talked about and treated in other cultures aside from the United States. Finally, Chapter 8 discusses how China, specifically post-Mao China, defines and treats disability. I'm a Chinese major, and I spent last fall studying abroad in Shanghai, so this really stuck out to me. And I wanted to know how the Chinese government was involved in disability and how they either accepted it or condemned it. Therefore, I began to interview some friends and faculty to see where their thoughts were considering disability in the local and global worlds.
I would probably define disability as having some sort of hindrance or obstacle to overcome to lead a normal life.
Do you know anyone who you would consider disabled?
Yes.
How do you feel towards this person? Are they any less of a person to you?
Absolutely not.
How do you feel the WNL community handles disability?
I feel that there's probably a bit of a stigma, both against physical and perhaps like learning disabilities. There doesn't seem to be a very good campus for people that are physically disabled, doesn't seem very accessible. And then because of the school and pressure environment, there's probably a stigma against people with learning disabilities.
What could we do to improve disability accessibility at the school?
I would say that it just has to be a lot more accessible. There seems to be a lot of stairs, not a lot of access for people that wouldn't be able to walk up the stairs. Parking, make it easier for people to drive directly to campus.
What can we do as a community to make disability familiar?
Maybe make people just more aware, more learning and educational opportunities to hear from people that are disabled, and so people that aren't disabled can learn more about the challenges they face and how to help people that are disabled.
There are disabilities all around us, but sometimes people don't describe them as disabilities. Do you believe infertility is a disability? Why or why not?
I don't know if I would call it a disability. I don't know. I go back and forth because I don't think if I were infertile, I'd want people to think of me as disabled, just because I think there's so much like heavy connotation with the disability. But that being said, it does absolutely like set you back in certain ways and is a hindrance like physically. So therefore, I guess under a strict definition of disability, it would be a disability.
Do you think our culture stigmatizes those with infertility?
I definitely think so. I think that women who are infertile feel like they're less of women because they think that so much of being a woman is being able to like bear children. I definitely think so.
Do you know someone who is infertile or has an issue getting pregnant? Would you consider them disabled?
So my mom had a really hard time getting pregnant, and that's the only person I know personally. And I remember her telling me that she just felt like the things I was just saying, like less of a woman and things like that. I don't know if she would have called herself disabled, but it definitely was like hard on her psyche.
Do you think that the medical advancements in fertility, for example, having a baby through IVF, destigmatizes and almost familiarizes infertility?
Yes, I do think so.
Why do you think infertility and something like a mental disability or a physical disability are on different planes in our society?
So mental disability and being infertile?
Yeah, or like having like paraplegia or something.
I guess because mental disability, there's like this whole stigma where it's kind of like it's in your head, so therefore you're the one who's responsible to fix it. Whereas something that's like on your body, it's like out of your control, so therefore it's more of a disability.
What can we do about this? How can we support people with invisible disabilities just as much as we support people with visible ones?
I guess like bring awareness to it. Like the IVF thing, I think has, like you said, like really brought it to the forefront. And now it's kind of like more commonplace. And I do think that there are a lot of people who are working to make mental health a lot more like aware.
How could you better yourself as a member of both WNL society and our global society in terms of how you treat and regard all kinds of disability?
I definitely think that at WNL, I know we might have been talking about this, how there's like barely any like ramps or like things that make like getting around more accessible for people who are disabled. So that's definitely something I could be more involved in. Also, I think that especially on WNL's campus, mental health is extremely stigmatized. I don't know anyone personally who's actually that's a lie, I do, but I know it's like very hush hush, people who go to the counseling center. So maybe if we all talked about it more freely, then more people would feel comfortable going, and it wouldn't be kind of like this hushed thing.
Well, you were born in Romania, but have lived in multiple other countries. How do you see disability defined in all of these different cultures?
As I was growing up, I think it wasn't very good. Society and culture was often quite how to put it, unsupportive, to put it mildly. Often people with disabilities were actually not just offered all the best resources, but made fun of, particularly in the younger age, or treated with a level of pity. But no, I think, and now going back to Romania, I think has made some progress, and in general European countries still have some ways to go in terms of creating more resources for people with disabilities.
So how do you personally define disability?
To be honest, I don't even like very much the word disability. Immediately the term disability puts people at a disadvantage and creates an aura of inadequacy and of negativity. I think we're all differently abled, and some people have maybe certain maybe physical difficulties or mental difficulties in some areas, but they could very well have pluses and have special abilities that many of us don't. So I don't know, I don't even really want to give it a definition. I think everybody should be given the opportunity and the resources to be able to thrive within the parameters of their abilities.
How do you think the United States is different from other cultures and how it represents, handles, and defines disability?
Frankly, I think it does pretty well in comparison. There's always room for improvement, but to my knowledge, I don't know if, I'm not sure whether other countries, certainly not the country that I came from, have, for instance, the equivalent of the American Disabilities Act, which is really very important because it has immediately allowed people with disabilities to be included in society at all levels and to participate in all aspects of social and cultural and professional life.
In my Anthropology of Disability class, we read about a man named Domba who was Indian. He got a kidney transplant. He was a member of the Suya religion, and they believe that spirit loss comes from either like an act of sorcery or a serious bout with illness or disability. So he needed a kidney transplant and finally got one from a deceased white man. When he woke up from his procedure, he believed that he had not only gained a kidney from a white man, but also several characteristics from him, such as the power that whiteness gives you, without making him physically white. He believed he not only gained the kidney of the dead man, but also part of his soul. What do you think about this story? Does it make you uncomfortable? Do you find it strange or weird, or do you understand this and think it's normal?
Well, within the frame of his culture and religion and beliefs, for him it was normal. parameters of normality vary from person to person, not to mention from culture to culture, country to country. So, of course, looking at it from the perspective of my Western education and of embracing diversity and celebrating the differences between us, I think it's an interesting myth. But yes, it does make me at least smile with a certain level of skepticism. Of course, I'm aware of, because my culture too, particularly in the rural areas, and the mythology of it, Romania has various myths and legends and beliefs like this that are some pre-Christian and in terms of inheriting spirits or being inhabited by different spirits. So I understand it culturally, and as I said, as a literature person, I think it's interesting.
How do you think we can make disability more familiar and less taboo in the global and local community?
Well, what I know about disability as well in the areas of art and culture is in my theater work. I am part of a organization called Theater for Social Justice, and also I have several friends, theater artists, who are actually doing work with disability. I think things like that are fantastic opportunities for people, for such communities to feel that they are given full expression and full access to society, and that their voices are heard, and also to feel that they're fully able. So also actually our my colleague in the theater department here, Stephanie Sandberg, she does work with disability also in terms of theater. So I think in terms of the wider realm outside of the arts and theater, so I think at all levels of culture, politics, the arts, society, anything we can do at a personal level in terms of education, to educate people about it, to educate children starting from school, and then to create the resources, the physical and the intellectual and emotional resources for all of them to be productive members of society.
Can you explain to me, briefly, what happened to you to make you disabled at Washington and Lee?
Yes. I fell from a 3.5-story window, landed on my left knee and right foot. I broke 19 bones in my body, my face, my jaw, my back, my knee, and both of my feet. So basically I was in a wheelchair because I had a cast on my right foot, and then I had a big kind of scar over my left knee where I couldn't really bend it at all. So I couldn't use both of my legs. So fully handicapped, couldn't even use crutches for the first month until I got my cast off my right foot after 1 month, and then I was on crutches for another month.
So did you feel completely disabled while you were at Washington and Lee?
Yes, completely disabled, yeah, I did.
How did your friends and professors and classmates treat you differently?
I think it brought me closer to some people and farther away from other people, honestly. The school, well, talking from a friend's perspective, obviously it brought me closer to a lot of people that really showed up for me, took me to class, helped me open doors, helped me move from my wheelchair to the toilet, literally. Helped me, just move me around everywhere, and that was really difficult. Professor-wise, the professors were extremely helpful. I was in lab during it. When I was in the wheelchair, obviously couldn't even reach the hood, so they had a TA with me at all times, exclusively for me, helping me out. So that was totally fine. The school, I would say the school, committee or deans and whatever, they... I think they were scared because I was handicapped that I would sue the school because they were doing things wrong. For example, they didn't have, how the school is pretty old. Mm-hmm. I usually worked in the science center because I'm a chem major. They didn't have handicap doors in the science center, which is illegal. And they actually only got them once I had my accident. That's why now there's the handicap doors. And I think they were really scared that something was going to happen to me during school, or I was going to find a glitch in the system and sue them. So they didn't want me back in school. I felt pretty betrayed by them. I literally got a call from the dean saying, you should not come back to school. And I had every right to, so I did. And I felt like the student community and the professor community, they were extremely supportive during everything.
Well, that's great. How did your life change socially after this?
I think it made me tougher. I think it made me stronger. It really put into perspective what people go through every day that are handicapped for the rest of their lives. Little things that you don't even realize, like my friends would make a reservation on the second floor of the building, and in WNL and in Lexington in general, it's such an old city that there aren't elevators in some places, and you can't dinner, and those little things that suddenly you have to skip a dinner. I couldn't go to the movie theater because the movie was playing on the second floor. Little things like that intervene with your everyday life, and that was just, for me, it was only for a month in the wheelchair. Once I was on crutches, it was a lot easier. I can't even imagine for people who are handicapped for their whole lives. So it made me, I think, more understanding of disabled people's situation.
Do you currently consider yourself disabled?
That's a tough question. I can easily get the disabled card, that you can use for airports, and the handicap for cars. I can't run anymore. I can't walk long distances. But it's a tricky question because I kind of just face the challenge and face the pain and do it anyways. But I would be probably classified as disabled. Yes.
So what do you wish people knew about disability?
I think people want to be treated the same. People were treating me pretty vulnerable and looking down on me. The only person the whole time to actually kneel down and talk to me face to face like a normal person was Suze's mom. Everyone just looked down on me and make me kind of belittle me in a way because I couldn't do much. And poor Maggie. I wish they would realize that disabled people are strong too. But also be aware of your surroundings and but in a not poor thing kind of way. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Definitely.
I don't know how to put it in more formal.
No, yeah, definitely. What can we do as a community to make disability more familiar?
Well, I think it's difficult at WNL, honestly. I think because of how the campus is built, it's really hard to do it there. I mean, there's steps everywhere. A while ago, there was a guy that used to play football, ended up disabled in a wheelchair, and he had to literally leave the school because he couldn't move around the school. And public safety is very helpful, and they would take me around everywhere, but it takes a while. Maybe it takes 20 minutes for them to get there, then you're late to class. It's a really hard school to be disabled at, honestly. I think the community is extremely helpful and understanding. I just think the actual infrastructure of Lexington as a whole is just really hard to be disabled in.
How do you think China defines disability?
Well, they treat people with disability as anywhere else, I think.
So if you're in China and you believe you have a disability, do you know the process you would have to go through, or one thing you'd have to do in order to be claimed as or identified as disabled, an ID card or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. You have to go through some kind of department in order to get some license where you can get some convenience, some privileges.
So that'd be kind of similar to a handicap sticker on a car here.
I think so,
okay.
Yeah.
So can you talk to me about Sanji Ren? I might be saying that wrong again. Sanji Ren. Do you know about this? What does that mean to you? Is there a negative connotation with that word?
No, I think it's purely neutral.
Okay.
I think especially in the big cities. In the remote areas, there might be some negative connotation.
How does disability interact with the power of the state or government in China?
What do you mean?
How does the government get involved with disabilities? Aside from just giving them an ID card, do you think the government supports people with disabilities, or do you think they try to condemn it?
I don't think the government would condemn them. neither would government show special favor, except in places, when people have to line a queue to get things, they may, they don't have to line up. And in a lot of places in China, there's no ramp still. So that could pose some problem for some people with disabilities.
Do you think how America handles disabilities and how China handles disabilities, do you think that's similar?
I think America is more advanced. China still has a lot to learn.
Do you think that Chinese people talk openly about disability, and even something such as like a mental disability or something you can't physically see?
Mental disability, I think still it's a sensitive, people don't want to review, or their relatives don't want to say to you.
Has anything changed that you know of regarding disability or the way that people treat it in the past 20 years?
I don't know exactly, because I've not been there back, constantly in the past 20 years.
What do you think people could do, both in America and in China, to change the taboo nature of disability?
I think they need to raise the profile of the people with disabilities to the government, and people various levels of the government will be aware of their special needs. So those are the things they need to do. Sometimes it's not that government wanted to does not want to help. It's just that they were not aware. They were not they don't want to show that much care. So you want to raise their concern, raise their visibility to various people, including the public, so that they can raise a voice to the government as a whole, and let the government to adopt more measures.